Hey guys, good evening. How are you tonight? I am here to share my weekly thoughts with you, if you will, or my however often it happens thoughts. But I just wanted to spend some time talking to you a little bit more about something again that has helped me heal, and it is just thinking about the stories that I tell myself and then how I'm able to reframe those to become more of a positive experience. And really what I'm thinking about is stuff that is not necessarily the most pleasant to think about in terms of a memory. There are lots of good things that have happened to me, and of course I want to remember those for what they are, but it's the things that I put a negative meaning to that I'm talking about in reframing those. Because when we really think about events that happen to us as we're going along, of course things are gonna happen. Different things come along, different problems, different opportunities, different solutions, different whatever happen to come along. And we really have to control how we're reacting to those, is I guess what it's coming down to, and reframing that experience. Like when they happen, it's how we see it that puts positive or negative value to these things. And so if we're able to say, all right, maybe that's not a bad thing, actually, maybe that's a really good thing. So like with my whole thing with Lyme, for example, I find now that I am actually more grateful than anything that has happened to me. And while it was a terrible experience and very awful to go through, and I hope to God I never ever have to go back there, or anyone else would ever have to go through what I did go through, it has made me a much better person. And so I can look at those events and say, all right, at the time it felt really horrible, but now it's not so bad. Or possibly like looking at some past relationships that I've had, in particular one that was not very healthy for me and was completely toxic. And I used to have a lot more of like anger or resentment or whatever about that situation. And now I've looked at it and said to myself, you know what, Anna, it's pretty actually okay what has happened, because it's exactly what you needed to have happen to you to become who you are. And also potentially maybe by being in that situation, I helped somebody else out to grow and evolve and become a better person. I'm going to keep praying that that has happened in that situation too. But really, it's just retelling ourselves these events that have happened. Like, oh, woe is me, this is so bad, I was abused. No. Don't say that to yourself. You think about more of like, wow, look at me, I'm a survivor. I made it through that. I am strong, I am tough as nails, and I can conquer the world. And so these are the things that we just begin to start shaping and telling ourselves. And it removes blocks slowly but surely. We're starting to open up the flow for energy then by reshaping that and not holding on to so much fear and resentment or anger, but now we're opening up to love. And really that's the key to true energy flowing through you, by the way, is finding that vibration of love. And I don't mean like, oh, I'm so in love with you, blink, blink, wink, wink, kissy, kissy. No, it's just like love flows through all of us. And when we're able to see that through each and every one of us, then we can look at all different situations more as a positive experience. But at any rate, what I'm also thinking about too with this is like, how are ways that you can specifically retell yourself these stories? And journaling is something that's very helpful and useful. And you can really start to write down different situations that have happened. Write down the good, write down the bad. And then we start to focus on the good of that. And we can reframe and restructure that story with more of a positive spin to it. So we're not so angry with ourselves for having been in that situation or that space for that long. And then like, how can we apply this to other things in our life? Like, what other situations that we've gone through that might not be so pleasant can we begin to start to unfold? And we look at different traumas or different experiences that we've had that might put us into a space of feeling like we're not worthy or we don't deserve. And that causes problems later in all of our other relationships. So if we can go back to those moments in time where we felt stunted in our growth or shunned or not accepted or whatever it was that might have like veered us off of having our true light shining through us, then that's really a good turning point for us. We can see that and we can say, oh, okay, that kind of an experience for me was a negative one. Why? Break it down, tease it apart, figure out what was so bad about it for you, and start to be able to retell yourself like, okay, maybe it was a bad thing, but that's not bad to everyone. I was listening to a podcast today actually that was talking about like if you're late a lot, which I happen to be late pretty often. I'm generally like 5 minutes late. It's just my world, but I always feel bad because I feel like that's like disrespectful to that person's time and whatever else. And so the person I was listening to was discussing like, one person might react very negatively to that and be very angry and like quick to blame and say like, you're so bad and such a bad person. Whereas another person might be like, oh, thank God, I got an extra 20 minutes. I can sit still, I can read, I can look at my Facebook page, I can do whatever. And so what are the differences in that? And why are those two people looking at that situation so differently? And this is really the point that I'm getting at too. It's like one person sees this as something that's totally wonderful and positive. Another person sees this as like the worst insult that you could do to them. And why is that? Again, when we start to look within ourselves and the stories that we tell ourselves about that, that's really where that comes from. And so the person who's sitting there all angry and negative potentially had a bad experience about that, or they feel like you are, again, disrespecting them and something has happened in their past that's making them feel this way. It's not you that made them feel this way. It's their own feelings within themselves that's made them feel this way. And again, the person who's like excited about the extra time for themselves, they again see that situation differently, and it's the same exact thing. So when it comes to healing, when it comes to looking at different experiences that we've come across in our own lives, how can we dissect that again to be able to see that more in a positive light and be the person who's happy about that situation because it's given them the time or the whatever it is that they needed to be able to complete themselves more fully. So for what that's worth, that has helped me come a lot more full circle with the experiences that I've come into in my own life and have some peace and some fulfillment, I guess, about what's happened to me. I could sit there and again cry my eyes out about 10 years of my life lost to a disease, which really sucked the life out of me and turned me into a zombie. Or I could be pissed off about the 10 years that I spent basically with someone that turned into a very toxic or negative relationship and waste my whole life stuck in that energy forever. But I've chosen not to go there, and I still balance and struggle with this. Of course, I'm human. But for the most part now, I'm really truly grateful because, again, it's made me that much of a better person, that much more of a feeling person, that much more of an empath or whatever it is. God already programmed me pretty hardwired that way, but it's just helped me to see things a lot more differently. So have a great night, everybody. Do think about this. Think about the smallest little things, like those little grains of sand that get into the oyster that eventually turn into a pearl, but piss it off for a little bit in the meantime. These are those types of things that I want you to start processing and turning them more into pearls. Have a great night.